safe. Nobody's safe. Nobody's safe. Nobody's safe. Tonight we are going to we're going to try to maybe not scream at each other as much tonight and step all over each other. We decided that we're going to have to try to come up with something where we have to agree, at least mostly, to come up with a list. So what we're going to do, we were talking quarterbacks the other night. That didn't go well. So we'll see what we think about each other's wide receiver picks for the top 10 of just guys that we've seen. And then we're at the end, we're going to part of this is going to serve for my other podcast, Way Past Due, which is the campaign to get Otis Taylor into the Hall of Fame. We are going to put him up against our top 10, see where he would land with some adjusted stats, kind of the way that a calculator that we built up, plus our eyes. So this is all stuff that, I mean, the one thing I will say about Otis, we've definitely put our eyes on him a lot in the last month and a half. So I feel like we can definitely do that. Don't you think, Bryce? Of course, I am Jason Watkins, your co-host Bryce Pinson. You know, nobody's safe whenever this show comes on. So hopefully we can maybe keep our stuff together a little bit more tonight.
Jason had us singing Kumbaya earlier around a campfire, trying to get along. We were like, let's have some peace. You know, we're trying our best here. We're going to have 10. We're going to come up with a list of 10. It's got to be 10. It's got to be, we got to agree. Even if I give a little, he's got to give a little. You know what I'm saying? We're going to come up with 10. Let's go.
Let's go with 10. Okay. So we're going to go from the back end first. I think that we pretty much are in agreement on what the top 3 would be anyway.
You want to go honorable mentions real quick? Or you want to go 10? Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. Or in fact, if you want to go with your honorable mentions and see what mine are and number 10.
So my honorable mentions right here, I got Reggie
is.
Wayne. He didn't make my top 10. He was a great receiver. He was the second best receiver Peyton Manning threw the ball to, though, is why I have him on outside of that. Right. I got Torrey Holt. Man, that one hurts me because I think he's so great. I got Andre Reed. I made a video about this guy against Otis Taylor. I put Michael Irvin on there, not so much that I think – just because he's popular, more because he's the best Cowboy receiver. And then I got Steve Smith.
Is he, though?
Best Cowboy for his full career.
Receiver.
That's kind of most of his career was with the Cowboys. And then Steve Smith Sr., I just loved him because he was a little guy who just threw up his dukes every day. And with that being said, my top 10, my number 10 guy, the guy who was better than Reggie Wayne, I got Marvin Harrison.
Okay, so you've got Marvin at 10. Okay, now you're not going to believe this.
We agreed.
We have the exact same everything except for number 10. And because I have Torrey Holt at my number 10, I believe that he was definitely. I mean, and you come in, Isaac Bruce was established already at that point. He comes in and in his rookie season lights it up, and in the second season really lights it up. You know, so wins the Super Bowl his first year, but I mean, he ends up with 13,000 plus yards for his career. I definitely think he's a Hall of Famer that hasn't been put in yet, and I don't know why. So I would say that definitely I would add Isaac Bruce as an honorable mention. My other honorable mentions would be Steve Smith Sr., also Andre Johnson, Reggie Wayne, which Reggie Wayne is really close to that Torrey Holt spot as well. I feel like he's right there. And then I think that Andre Reed is right there as well. And we didn't even really bring up James Lofton, but he led the all-time receiving yards until Jerry Rice broke it. So, he's right up there. And, in fact, he's still right up there. So that would be another honorable mention. I think you need to at least bring them up. You know, we need to talk about these guys either way. So I would say Torrey Holt at 10.
Oh, time out, Jason. I don't know if we said this. We're only trying to pick guys that we saw. So – older guys, you did say, okay, just making sure.
Yeah, that's
only guys I watched
say,
with my eyes. I don't really remember the guy you're talking about, Lofton. So for me, that guy can't make the list because I just don't remember him.
Wow. Well, and he was on that Bills team that lost 4 straight Super Bowls. So I mean, so as was Andre Reed, but he was there before Andre was, and but they had essentially, and I think he may not have been on all 4 of those teams at the end. So I know he ended up with the Packers at some point in his career. I don't know if it was first or after.
True story. Real quick. You mentioned those Super Bowls, Jason. The third one, I think, was it against the Cowboys, the third one? Okay, the third
and
Super
fourth,
Bowl
they
was
lost to
the
Cowboys.
Super Bowl that made me fall in love with football. That's when I started watching. I was at my uncle's house.
Yeah.
They had the game on, and that was the day I fell in love.
Oh, and they just beat the
That was the day I fell in love.
brakes off them.
There was
too,
like a
man.
party
Oh.
before I was born.
The Cowboys were. I'll tell you, as much as I'm not a Cowboys fan, that was a
Absolutely.
nasty football team.
Absolutely.
A nasty football team. So yeah, I mean, it is what it is. So all right, so we're looking at all right now. So that's number 10. We're not in agreement now. So I have Torrey Holt in there.
Marvin Harrison.
Who did you have? Oh, on Marvin Harrison. Okay. So I have Marvin Harrison.
This is where it gets
9.
interesting. I mean, we're going to have to agree. We're going to have to come up with something. I think we give our list and then we kind of come up with it because there's going to be some give and take. My number 9, man.
Yeah, let's go ahead.
My number 9 is
let's
Andre Johnson, bro. I think he's incredible. And I think he has to make this list.
Yeah. Okay. So you've got Andre Johnson at number 9.
Number 8.
Go ahead.
Number
8 as well, and then
Antonio
I'll give you
Brown.
Okay.
Who you got at number 8?
Okay. I'm going to have at number 9, I'm going to have Marvin Harrison. And then at number 8, I have DeAndre Hopkins. And I know he's still early in his career, but he's still up there. I mean, the guy's already got almost 11,000 yards. He's got 10-5 in just 8 seasons. And, and he's had a couple of those that he, got hurt a little bit. And this past year he was hurt. So, I mean, he's been a monster. I think that Bill Belichick thinks he's the best receiver in the game right now. I'm not positive that he is, but I know he's right there. I mean, if he's not the best right now, he's maybe second.
Bill Belichick said it whenever Julio Jones was at his best and A.J. Green was at his best. It was right after – I mean, I don't even know. Was Calvin Johnson in the league when he said that? I don't think so. But, man.
No, because he has to have been out 5 years because he went in first. Okay. He's been out for a while because it's been – let's see. He went in 20. He went in the hall in 20, and he was the first ballot.
Yeah.
So that would have been 15 that he got out, 2015. That's crazy.
It is.
It's been that long since he played.
It's a long time.
It's crazy. Yeah. Okay, so going to number 7.
Is it me or you?
Number 7.
Okay, I got Julio Jones, man. I think the thing that holds Julio Jones back is he didn't score touchdowns. Julio Jones is a yards guy. He had a bunch of catches, a bunch of yards. Not a red zone threat, I think, is the only thing that holds him out of the top 5.
Wait. Did
not
you
as much as some of these other guys is all I'm saying. My top – he just didn't have the touchdowns is all I'm saying. He just didn't – and if he had more touchdowns, I think he is in the top 5. But he only had 61 touchdowns, which that 60 number I know is ringing a bell in your head of what that lines up with. And he played way more seasons than Otis Taylor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and and if we start talking, I mean, going by what you kind of do sometimes, you talk about the quarterback and what they are. And I know that everybody likes Matt Ryan a lot. I'm not the biggest Matt Ryan guy. I think that he's a Alex Smith, throw it 15 yards, and that's about maxing it out generally. So a lot of Julio Jones's yardage and I mean, if you look at his yards,
a lot of yards, a lot of
that, and I don't have that other link now. He had a ton of yards, and the guy has been just unreal. So to me, it's hard to. I would definitely. I've got him higher up that list. So right now I'm at number 7. I'm going to go ahead and stick with Antonio Brown. AB has had some kind of year of career as well. He's at 12, 291, 87 touchdowns. He's right there behind Julio as far as the yardage is concerned. And when you look at him as far as his size and everything else, Antonio Brown should not be able to do what he does. He does anyway. So I'm going to have him there. So let's go, and then I'll go ahead and pick my.
Let me talk about Antonio Brown real quick.
The next one.
Let me jump in because I didn't say nothing about him when I picked him, Jason.
Okay. Actually, I have Julio.
So I have Antonio Brown at 8. I know I already said that. My thing about Antonio Brown, the biggest thing to me about him is if he would have just shut up and played and not got in trouble and he just played, I think we would probably have him at 2 or 3, honestly.
I tend to agree with that somewhat, but I also feel like I don't really get that upset with receivers being who they are, because if you don't let them be who they are, then they don't play like that. So I feel like some of them are more of a pain in the ass than others are. But to me, really, I expect a receiver to be a certain level of diva. Even Jerry Rice was. I mean, he hated it when Deion Sanders got to town. They never hardly talked when that whole year, even though they won the Super Bowl together. He didn't like sharing spotlight with Deion Sanders at all. He didn't want to talk about him. He didn't. I mean, like there was times that he would get very angry with reporters. They'd say something about Deion. He didn't want to talk about him. So even the GOAT.
Well, I don't have a problem with the diva. I have no problem with the diva.
You know,
what I'm saying is it cut his career short. He couldn't get back on the field, and you give him another season or two.
Yeah, and like whatever happened with the female situation when he got to Tampa. I'm not positive about and what happened that sent him away from New England, I guess, essentially. I would say that is definitely he definitely lost the season there. I mean, he lost the season. There's no two ways around it. And what he just did this past season, now, do I agree with what BA did, sending him off? No. And I think that AB kind of acted the fool? A little. But I think that, again, receivers get a little antsy when they're not getting targeted. He was hurt anyway, and I believe that he was hurt. And so why am I going to play if you're not going to target me anyway? So, but for him to have to leave, now you're looking at, there's more of a season that you lost. And, but it wasn't much. It was was it the last game of the year?
I'll pull it up right now.
Or they had one or two left, maybe. Yeah, it was the Jets or something. It was right towards the end. But anyway, yes, he definitely, I mean, look, you figure at least, what is his minimum that he's gotten in his time?
Well, I mean,
what is his lowest yardage?
If you don't count any injury seasons, like let's just go over this little stretch of 25 to 20 to 30 years old. He went 1499. I'm going to say 1,500 yards, 1,700 yards, 1,800 yards, 1,300 yards, 1,500 yards. Like that is a heck of a stretch. And then he had 1,300 yards. Like the guy was incredible. And then it just happened. He didn't play a game at 31. He only started 4 games at 32, and he only started 3 games at 33. I mean, his rookie season, he didn't start any. Like this guy's career has just been interesting. And he's one of the best receivers I've ever seen.
To say the least. Yeah, definitely. I mean, he does things with the ball in his hand
that's right.
Not many people do. You know, it's definitely, he's been, I mean, you know, I definitely, that's why I have him up where I have him. I mean, I feel like he's at 7 and he could definitely be up there. I don't know that he cracks the top 3, but I feel like he definitely could have
maybe
gotten
you're right.
as high as 4. Maybe.
And then I guess it's my turn. Am I at 6?
I think he maybe gets as high as 4.
All right, I got DeAndre Hopkins.
And you can do 5
your
also.
boy Bill Belichick, you know, who's obviously a very reputable coach. Whenever he says something, he knows defense, and whenever he says you're the best player on the field, it's because he's watched you in the film room, and he knows who the best. And this guy said, "Hey, I think you're the best receiver," and that's enough for me to say, "Hey, I think he belongs at least 6, and he might be 5."
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Larry Legend,
number 5
Larry Fitzgerald. And it's all about yards there. It's yards, longevity, taking care of your body, and doing it every single year, showing up every single game.
And yeah, and that's why I have him a little higher up. I've got at number 5, I've got Calvin. The only thing, and I think that Calvin very well could have hit top 2 here very easily. But I don't feel like that his 11-6, and he did it in 8 years. He played one more season than who we were talking about earlier. Hey, I feel like this is just based upon he didn't hang around very long. You know, he got the and can you blame him? I mean, he did play for the Lions, so it's kind of hard to blame the guy. But the fact that he's got, I mean, well, then again though, he just got 11,600 yards playing for the Lions, but he played with Matt Stafford, and I mean, good situation. They were never going to win. I wouldn't have hung around a whole lot longer either. He made his money. Bye. At number 4, I would come in with Fitz. That's where I'm going to, and actually it's debatable. I would almost put him in front of my number 3 guy But because of those, I mean, listen, he's number 3 all time or number 2 all time yardage wise. It's not really close between him and these next 2 guys that we're going to talk about. But I definitely have him at 4. I mean, I would probably move him up, maybe move him up. But that being said, when you talk about the next 2 guys that we're going to get into talking about, you're going to go ahead and give me your number 4, and then we'll stop there. But I think electricity-wise, Larry, he was that steady dude. He was going to have he had big seasons all the time, and he piled them on, and the dude made catches when he wasn't going to drop balls, and so it's hard for me to just stick to him. But that being said, I would go. I mean, he only had 121 touchdowns. His yards per reception, he was more of that catch the tough ball towards the end of his career. He didn't have some of the explosive seasons that these other guys that we were talking about did. He was a steady guy.
My number 4, we swapped 4 and 5 between the 2 of us. You had Calvin, then you had Fitz. Okay. I had Fitz, and then I had Calvin. And the reason, and it's the same thing that you literally just said. So I get the stats. Fitz has the stats, but my eyeballs, I tend to trust. Yeah, I know.
But by 5,000 yards, it's hard for me to go the other way.
Usually, the way I picked this, Jason, is 6, I was like, which guy would I rather have on my team? And I guess you could make a case for Fitz saying that, the fact that he was always available.
Well, he's going to hang around longer. He's going to double. He's going to give you 8 more years than you got out of Calvin. But that being said, if we're talking about natural ability, there's not many guys. I mean, who's better than Calvin Johnson as far as athletic?
Calvin, he has that year where he had almost 2,000 yards, 122 receptions. This guy averaged about 16 yards a reception. We talked about Calvin, but the whole fact, my top 4, the reason Fitz doesn't make it is maybe I trust my eyeballs more than I trust the stats. And
and either way, electric wise, I look, if we're talking about talent, but that being said, I have a hard time sticking him in front of him just because we're talking 6,000 yards.
No, I feel you. I get you.
I would go. I mean, even Julio was higher. I don't know, and Julio Jones could easily be in that top number 2. Again, he's right there too. But I feel like we're splitting hairs again. We don't necessarily have to have the exact same one, but we're close on it all. And I'm actually rather surprised after the way we spoke to each other about quarterbacks the other day. I thought we might have another shit show on our hands. So, we weren't that far off.
We're going to be able to agree because I'm going to give some and you're going to give some, and we're going to come up with this list because I want to do this list for your other podcast. I want y'all to put it, and if it's me and you on your other podcast, cool. But I want to see where Otis Taylor comes up to Bryce and Jason's list on.
Absolutely, and when we've been watching him enough, and the way that I've been hinting at this for a while, but there's a stat that we've uncovered, and I'm going to go ahead and talk about it tonight because I can, and it's easy to do it. So. We have our audience here. I'm hoping that some of this audience is going to come with us. Let's talk a little bit about that before we get into switching some of these guys out.
Okay.
Just again, right now this is the Nobody's Safe podcast, and this is a blast and everything, and I hope everybody's enjoying it. But I got to tell you right now, the most important thing for me is the Way Past Due podcast, and that is for Otis Taylor. He has been out of football for 48 years. And something I want to explain to everybody is I was editing the podcast that we just had come out tonight, which get out there and check it out on YouTube. I'll leave a link on here for when you see this in the morning. But we're talking about a guy that Otis's 1971 season was his first year to really watch football and love football. He fell in love with the Chiefs that year. He is a super fan. Weird Wolf is his name. He paints his face and gets rowdy at the games. He's been at pretty much every home game for probably 35 years. So, and he's met Otis Taylor a couple of times. It was a great, honestly, this is what I've really loved, Bryce, about the podcast, about the campaign in general, is that not only have I learned something about a guy that I had no idea about, and he is truly becoming a hero of mine. I ordered a freaking jersey. I am not a Chiefs fan. In fact, the Chiefs beat my team a couple of years ago in the Super Bowl. So, look, I this dude is unreal, and it's unreal to me that he's not in the Hall of Fame. And we're talking about us splitting hairs. That is exactly what happened with him not getting in. And I think that somehow he got lost in the shuffle. We talked about what it was, and we don't have to stay there. But at those, I mean, everybody I've spoken to or I've read something, I mean, Bobby Bell talks about him he said he could have been an NBA player. He very easily could have. He played college basketball at Prairie View also. You know, he threw the ball 100 yards. You know,
wow.
Ken Houston said he's like Muhammad Ali or Jim Brown. That's just that kind of athlete. And there's those dudes and there's everybody else. You know, and so these are the guys out there on the field. Lamar Parrish said, and Lamar Parrish would talk as much junk today at 75 years old. He's still talking junk, right? But he will stop short before he says anything about Otis. He's like, hey, man, that's the guy you make a mistake with. He burns you. You're gone. He's gone. You know, if you make a mistake with it, and Lamar was a little dude, you know, but he was fast. I mean, this dude, all his interceptions for a touchdown, they may have all come off of Terry Bradshaw. No, I'm just kidding. A few of them did, though. But the long ones certainly did. He had like 48, 50-yard touchdowns. I tell you, you got to check out Lamar Parrish. This dude, he is another guy that ought to be in the Hall of Fame. You know, it could be way past due for him as well. And it is.
Oh, it is. Wait. I can't wait.
So I got to tell you, I mean, guys like this, I mean, it's important that what is going on is important. The Way Past Due podcast, the Way Past Due campaign to get Otis into the Hall isn't just for Otis. It's actually for a lot of these guys. And we're uncovering more of them every day. I looked at some guys today that I could throw them out there all day long. Okay. And it befuddles me that you could do this. Now, of course, they don't have they weren't on TV as much I just want everybody to understand that please check it out. It's Otis Taylor, OTISTAYLOR, the number 4, HOF.com. You got to understand that every year that he doesn't go into the Hall of Fame, it's a year that it's easier to forget about it. Okay.
Yep.
And a lot of these writers, there's a few of them left that were around at that time, or maybe they're coaches or GMs like Polian's still around. There's some of them that were still around at that time or could remember him in some way. Most of them probably don't. Okay.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that people remember. So, you know, share all this content, share the content that you find on Facebook. We're at OT4 Hall of Fame on Facebook. You'll find it's the big black and red 89 single. It's on, you know, we'll show it to you here in a bit. In any event, guys, please help us out. That's my spiel right there. We'll talk a little bit more about him later. Let's take a quick commercial, and we'll be right back with the top 3. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Way Past Due. I'm your host, Jason Watkins. Way Past Due is the advanced lifestyle sports docuseries dedicated to bringing former Kansas City wideout Otis Taylor's exclusion from the Pro Football Hall of Fame to an end. We are powered by Riverside.fm, the online recording studio that the pros use to record podcasts and video from anywhere in studio quality and direct from your browser. You sweating the tech stuff? I don't do that. Riverside is going to take care of all the details and throughout the entire production process. With all that done for you, you'd figure it was pretty expensive, right? Nope, not so much. We're actually going to give you the first hour for free, and then you get to choose a plan to start recording. You can start with as low as 5 hours a month for just $15. Or if you have a lot more to do, customize your package. But you can start it low and head on up. You really can't go wrong with Riverside, man. This is the easiest way to start your video podcasting journey. So get going. All right, everybody. We're back to Nobody's Safe. And right now, there's a little, we basically, if you can believe it, we agreed on the guys in the top 10. Their orders are a little off. Go figure that. Except for one. So we've got one difference in the top 10 as far as the players that are in it. The orders is going to be just a little off, but the difference would be I had Torrey Holt at number 10. He had Andre Johnson at number 10.
At number 9.
At number 9. Okay. I have Marvin Harrison at number 9. So
Marvin Harrison should go to number 9 automatically on this list. We both have him. I have him at 10. You have him at 9. He's on both of our lists. For the top 10, he gets to be at number 9, period.
Okay.
What do you think?
Cool. Sounds good to me. That's fine.
Okay.
All right. So Well, so let's take a look at these two guys.
Let's compare.
With Andre Johnson, tell me what you think. Why did you choose him over Torrey, I guess?
Okay, so I got to watch both of these guys play. Andre Johnson, 6'3", he's 230 pounds. He came out of Miami. The dude was a beast. The thing that I really liked about him is he had 3 seasons over 1,500 yards. He almost had 1,600 yards in one of those seasons, which, like, one of the guys that's on my top 3 didn't have any seasons in 1,500 yards. Also, he had a 1,400-yard season, so he had a good career. But he had multiple quarterbacks.
Did he have the guys that some of these other dudes did? No,
like Marvin Harrison.
No, of course not. Of course he didn't have the guys that. But nobody did. A few did. A few guys on this list did. But okay. And look, guys, some of these guys are gonna. But you cannot discount somebody's greatness because their quarterback was great too. Because, bro, he got open. And if he didn't get open, Peyton wouldn't have thrown him the ball. So to me, Marvin Harrison deserves his spot on this list. Andre's good. I honestly, looking at this right now, I mean, that 3 over 1,500 yards. I mean, I didn't even realize this. I didn't, and he's numbered 11 all time in yardage. Yep. How many touchdowns did he have? It was.
I already moved over to Torrey Holt. I'm sorry. I just kind of wanted to look.
I'll pull him. It's okay. Go ahead. He's only had 70 touchdowns. How many did Torrey have? It was
Torrey. Oh, now I'm going back. I'm all over the place. All right, I'm pulling it up right now.
You stay with Torrey. I'll stay over here.
Yep. Torrey had 74.
Okay. All right, but he did have Torrey by a couple of thousand yards.
Yep. The big one is Torrey has 2 1,600-yard seasons. He had one season where he had 20 yards a pop.
Mm-hmm. He did, and they were both top 20 all-time seasons. But and with the touchdowns, but what is he? He's behind him by Andre Johnson.
500 yards.
500 yards more. Yeah, I mean, but the 3 1,500 yards, there were 2 1,600 yards, which is better. I mean,
he played less seasons.
I can't believe that we're leaving one of these guys out of the top 10 altogether now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah, but Torrey Holt played less seasons. Right. And that means that, it took Andre a little longer to get there.
Yeah, because Andre had 193 games. Torrey had how many?
Torrey had 173, 20 less games.
Okay. So it's basically a season and some change. So, yeah, I mean, and what's the yards per reception for Torrey Holt? It was like 15?
14.5. What's Andre?
Yeah, he's 13.4. I'm still going to lean Torrey, but I mean, I don't have.
You know what? I think after looking at this, put Torrey on there. Torrey's good. Number 10 is Torrey Holt. Andre Johnson, number 11.
And again, I think that somebody we should have talked about too, because we need to put them. They're not going to be in our top 10, but we left out James Lofton, who was definitely in the. I mean, he led. All receivers until Jerry Rice broke his record, and I believe he didn't. I mean, that's considerable. Another guy that we left out of there, Steve Smith Sr. Wow, Steve Smith for the guy the size that he was, the way that he played. I mean, if they keep him out of the Hall of Fame, people ought to have their butt kicked, but they might. I could see him do it.
Is he not in the Hall of Fame?
He's not in the Hall of Fame yet.
Wow,
no, and he's number 8 all time. They can't keep him out, can they?
Nah, I don't think so, man. Not a guy.
He's only been out. He's only been out of the game since 16, so he would just now be eligible this year.
He's the Allen Iverson of the NFL, bro.
Bro, he is, and just as gangster probably too, huh?
He ain't taking no crap. He's showing up every day.
No, he's giving you everything he's got. Punch you in your mouth, bro. I'm gonna punch you in your mouth, bro.
He ain't scared.
And looking at this too, we didn't have Isaac Bruce in here. He actually had 15,208 yards. Again, playing in the greatest show. I'm fairly surprised that he wasn't already in the Hall of Fame. I think he's certainly a Hall of Famer. I would kind of like you. At that time, I thought Torrey was a little better player. He definitely played longer. He played 15 years, 16 seasons. Torrey played 11. So yeah, I mean. But, I mean, he's top 5 receiving yards all time. He should definitely have at least been in our not necessarily in our top 10, but he's certainly an honorable mention. We should say, talking about him. Okay, next on the list, we're at number 8 and 7. I think we just have these two swapped at Julio Jones and Antonio Brown. I had Antonio at 7, didn't I?
Yep, and yes, I have Julio.
Okay. And you have Julio at 7. Okay. Julio's got more yardage. He's less touchdowns.
Here, I'll pull up Julio. You pull up Antonio.
You're pulling up Julio Jones. I've got AB up right now. AB has 12,291 yards on 13.2 yards per reception. He's got 83 touchdowns receiving in 146 games. That's a solid right there by itself. That's amazing. On top of that, he has also added 542 rushing yards and 4 touchdowns. So,
what is his yards per game?
His yards per game would be receiving yards per game are 84.2.
So Julio's got him at 91.9.
Wow. That's
touchdowns monster. Obvious. Obviously it's your boy Antonio Brown at touchdown. Yes. 61. Okay. Yeah.
He scores a lot of touchdowns, bro. He scores a lot of touchdowns.
I mean,
how many receptions? How many receptions?
Receptions 879.
Okay, AB's already at 928, and we just talked about him. He actually missed basically the better part of 2 seasons.
Well, how many years did he? How many games? 145 for Julio.
Yeah, he's at 146.
That many more receptions. He had that many more touchdowns, but Julio had more yards.
Does he? I mean, he's at 12.7. Julio's at what? He's at 13.3.
13.3. And it's all because of the yards per game thing.
Okay.
So how do you want to weight it? Do you want to weight it for the short passes, more receptions, and more touchdowns?
I actually had DeAndre Hopkins at 8, though. So we need to kind of throw him in here as well.
Okay, well, time out. No, time out. So I have him at 6. I have Julio at 7, Antonio Brown at 8. You have it what?
Mm-hmm. DeAndre at 8, Antonio, then Julio. Or no. Julio, then Antonio.
So Antonio's number 6?
I'm okay. I'm D Hop at 8, AB at 7, and Julio at 6.
Okay, so I think this is easier than we're making it.
Yeah.
Okay, time out. Tell me. Let me write that down, bro. My brain's not wanting to do it. Who do you have at 6? Brown?
I have at 6. I have Julio Jones. No, Julio. Yeah. I just think that he's a little. I mean, he's got a little more yards, but honestly, it's when you add in those. Does he have any rushing numbers? I'm not looking at it at the moment.
Rushing numbers. I mean, not very many. I don't even remember him getting very many carries. So he had 19 rush attempts for his career.
Yeah, well, yeah, Antonio's got 42, but he's got 545 yards. So, I mean, it's added. I mean, you're looking at he's got 12,800 total yards, AB does, in his career. One more game. I mean, he's still behind him in yardage. So, I mean, the tough yards definitely going to go to Julio because he's a bigger guy. He's going to make more of those kind of catches over the middle. But listen, I think you were talking about Steve Smith being the AI of professional football. AB's right there too.
So here's what I was kind of thinking based on both of our lists real quick. If you got Julio at 7 at 6, and I got him at 7.
Yeah.
And then you have Hopkins at 6. Exactly. You have Hopkins at 6. I have Hopkins at 8. So
I have him at 8. I have him at 8.
Sorry, backwards. I said it backwards.
Yes.
I have him at 6. You have him at 8. What I'm trying to say is it looks very simple to me based on what we have. We haven't. If you take the average rankings of where we have them, Brown belongs at 8. Okay. Hopkins belongs at 7, and Julio belongs at 6. If you take our
that's
average.
Fine. Yeah, that's fine. So Hopkins belongs at 7. So okay.
Brown 8, Hopkins 7, Julio 6. That's
let me get my list up here, and that way I can just I can go ahead and start filling these in. So at 10 we had Torrey.
Yep, Torrey Holt 10, Marvin Harrison 9.
Eight is AB.
Antonio Brown's 8. 7 is DeAndre Hopkins.
And that's crazy, guys, because he's behind both of them, but he still has – he's just now reaching the peak of his career, it feels like.
Honestly, I kind of want to change my ranking after talking about that. I did that way because it made sense, but I kind of want to change my ranking and put Antonio Brown above Julio Jones.
Do you?
I do.
Okay. So we're going to move – okay, so we got D-Hop at 7, correct?
Let's put D-Hop at 8. And let's move AB to
That's
7.
where I had him, so I'm good with that.
Yeah, move AB
now,
to
listen,
7.
but here's the thing. I mean, this list would be changed by next year, obviously, because I mean, if he does anything next season, he's going to catch up to. I mean, if he has a D-Hop season, he's going to catch one of them probably.
Well, if
considering
D-Hop, D-Hop's going to be up there when this is all said and done, bro.
Yeah, he's one of the best players. I mean, he's definitely one of the best players I've ever seen.
Me too.
I mean, the catches that he makes, and he's not the biggest guy in the world.
Bro, he's
bigger than it seems like he is. But we've got Hopkins, Julio Jones, and then AB at 6 now. So we moved him from 8 to 6. Is that correct?
I think that's fine. I thought we moved him from 8 to 7, but we can move him to 6 because it's debatable. I think he's better than Julio. No, he's better than Julio. You're right. Leave it. 8 to 6. He's better. Okay. We looked at the stats. The only thing Julio has him on is yards per game. Antonio Brown beats him in every other category. And
again, you look at it, and the guy is that explosive, being that small, and in compare. I mean, you look at Julio Jones, and he's like, wow, what a physical specimen. But again, and I don't think you have to hold that against him so much. But in the end, Antonio has better numbers, and he hadn't even played as much.
And that's why I said we sang Kumbaya. Look at us both. We can do it that way. You can do that too.
Yeah, this is getting kind of sickening, isn't it? So
honestly, we didn't do that. We looked at the stats. We debated it, and it was simple to see. It was simple to see.
I think where we don't agree on quarterbacks, we agree on receivers anyway. Sure. Yeah, I think we do. All right, so number 5. Number 5, we've got to swap there between Calvin and Larry Fitzgerald. I have Calvin at number 5. I have Fitz at number 4 due to yardage. I think because it's way off. It's 6,000 yards almost.
Listen,
again, electric-wise, I get it.
If you don't want to argue on this, you might as well flip a coin because I ain't backing down. Yeah. Calvin's better than Fitz. If you don't want to argue, flip a coin. I watched them both, bro. I could have if I put Calvin at number 2, it would be up for debate, and I'm not. But it could be.
I said it when I gave it to you on my list. I said that had he played longer, he's probably number 2. I think that's pretty clear.
Yeah, and we can flip a coin if you want. And I know Larry has the stats, but the guys in front of Larry on my list, 4,
Larry's
3,
steady.
2, and 1.
I mean, again, Larry's steady, and I said a minute ago, if we're talking electric and we're talking the guy that you can throw it up there, and I mean, Larry's going to come down with it too. But is he the dangerous guy that Calvin Johnson was? No, he's not.
He's not better than my top 4, dangerous-wise.
I don't think he is. I don't think that he is either. And I mean, I would go. I mean, it's hard for me to move that, but I don't have a problem with it. It's honestly, I think Calvin Johnson is one of the best players to ever play. So I mean, as far as athletically is concerned, you don't find them like that very often.
I mean,
I think you did find one back around 1965. He came into the league, into the AFL. But,
and he was just like Calvin. But that's what I'm saying. Like, if you look at this and you say, hey, give me one of these guys in their prime for their best season, who are you taking?
Oh, it's Calvin Johnson, yeah.
Yeah,
if we're between him and Fitzgerald,
it ain't Fitz.
No, it's not. It's not. And no offense to him. I mean, he's great. He's top 5. So, I mean, there is no offense there. He's
great. I just can't put him in front of Calvin. I can't put him in front of –
I got you. The next one I think is where we're going to argue again. Because I am definitely going with
Randy Moss at 3.
Let me move these guys. We got Randy and T.O.
You got Randy at 3.
I've got Randy at number 3, correct. Yes.
And I just think whenever I watched football, I've never seen anyone as special as Randy Moss. Not even Jerry Rice.
And I've never seen anybody that took off as much as Randy Moss did.
You're right, and that's why I might let you have this one because Randy Moss freaking did take plays off. But when Randy Moss tried, Jerry Rice wasn't better than Randy Moss when Randy Moss was trying.
But that's Randy Moss's problem.
I know.
That's where I feel like it's like to me.
Put him at 3.
I mean, look. In the end, let's just make this clear. is that, should he have maybe caught? But here's the thing I'll tell you about T.O. That guy might have been a pain in the ass too. And I think they were equal pain in the ass. I don't know why Randy got in on the first ballot and he didn't. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
That quarterback stuff or whatever. But like Donovan McNabb, what we found out since then, everybody wanted to take up for Donovan McNabb. I watched T.O. get his leg broke, play in the Super Bowl and get 200 plus yards. And I watched Donovan McNabb puking in the freaking on the sideline instead of getting out there and winning the damn game. When he had the best player in the world at that moment was T.O. with a broken leg. It's one of the most amazing performances I've ever seen in the Super Bowl. And come to find out later on, I mean, nobody was going to throw Donovan under the bus. He was the quarterback, and Andy loved him. Okay, but come to find out, the teammates didn't love him as much as they loved T.O. He got a bad rap in that. I think that his mouth definitely got big. But like, look, when he went to the Cowboys, he was a Niner. He did his thing at the Niners too, but he left there ugly too. So while he gets that reputation, again, I'm not one of these people that thinks that you have to be a choir boy to get in the Hall of Fame. First off, and in fact, it's part of their rules that you don't. Yeah. But they seem to decide who pisses them off more than others. It seems to be receivers. Actually, something that Kerwin came up with, and that it's a problem that he feels like there's 13% less represented receivers overall. So they're the lowest amount of players in the Hall by 13%. So, I mean, thinking about that, they obviously that's another layer of, we talked about that there's a racial layer there. There's an AFL layer there of a bias there. There's also the HBCU is part of it as well, which is part of that racial deal. But, that, and all of that kind of comes to, what we were talking about. But yeah, I mean, to me, I don't have a problem. Look, the way I feel about it again is if T.O. wasn't T.O., he wouldn't have been T.O. You know what I mean? He wouldn't have. Does that make sense? I mean, I know I just said the same thing over and over, but
I want to go back to the Donovan McNabb statement, because when we were prepping for this podcast, we kind of talked about this, and we talked about how when Big Ben plays quarterback, he elevates his receivers. And, sometimes we get
That's
fooled.
Not the case here. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sometimes we get fooled and we think that he's elevating T.O., but no.
Well, as soon as T.O. was out of there,
elevating him.
As soon as T.O. was out of there, he was junk after that.
And I could also make the argument, and I hate to do this, but I could also make the argument that when Randy Moss had a bad quarterback, he didn't elevate him because he didn't want to play.
Yeah. I agree. And that's where I'm at. Listen, when he went to the Raiders, what did he do?
He was done.
What did he do? Yeah, when he played with Tom and they were chucking it down the field and undefeated going into the Super Bowl, he was having a great time. But when he was in Minnesota towards the end, whenever Dante Culpepper had gotten hurt and traded, and I don't remember who they had in. I thought, was it Brad Johnson or somebody like that? I think it was for a while.
Jeff George.
I think it was Brad.
Jeff George?
I think it was Brad. Pretty sure it was Brad.
It might have been Brad. I think Brad. We'll see.
In any event, Randy was uninterested, and that's when he ran into the parking ticket lady, like pushed her with his car, doing stupid stuff like that. And I mean, whatever. That's when he did the, moon the crowd that's actually one of the things I liked, when he mooned the crowd at
that was one of my favorite
at Lambeau. That was great. Because that's what I loved about T.O. is the, get your popcorn ready and doing the pom-poms and stuff like that. That was one of my favorite times. I loved it when he stood on the star. That was my favorite T.O. moment. But,
so I think I can agree with you in this. One, I'll say this. I think Randy Moss was more talented when he showed up.
I think Randy Moss was probably more talented than anybody, but maybe Calvin Johnson.
But I'll give you this. I'll give you the fact that T.O. showed up and played his best every single solitary down.
Yeah.
Maybe it has to go to T.O.
He never took downs off. I know that. Sometimes he would drop easy balls. It was weird, but honestly, the guy would catch him over the middle. He was not afraid to catch those hard balls over the middle. And I mean, we can, hey, tell you what, we could actually take a look at a little video here.
Jeff George Jeff George was the quarterback before Dante Culpepper. I just remember.
So they had Chris Carter and they had And like Chris Carter, I mean, that's the thing is like he also had Chris Carter there, but as soon as Randy got sick of being, okay, here we go.
But
I'm going to share this screen for just a moment.
I'm cool with Randy Moss then T.O. But Jerry Rice is the GOAT. As long as if we don't agree on that, we ain't like you said. We don't even need to make a podcast.
No, I think that. I mean, come on, man. How can? There's no way that. Look, do I think that there were guys that were? This is why he's the GOAT. I'm going to tell you this because he maybe shouldn't have been. You know?
Yeah. What is his 40 time? How fast was he?
Yeah, it's like 4.6, 4.6, 4.7.
It might be worse than that. It was 4.68, I think. I think 4.7.
But here's the thing. If you watch him, this was a great catch by T.O. Wow, bro. Wow.
4.7.
But he left here ugly too. Yeah, T.O. made a mark. And you know, the things that the popcorn and all that, now was he a pain in the butt? I know he was. But I gotta say, the dude was real, man. And that's what he probably did as good as anybody was
celebrated in the end zone.
Well, yeah, definitely that. But like he didn't mind catching it over the middle, and like he was gonna break him like this too. Like, bro, come on,
dude. Actually, he's a pretty good guy. He's a pretty good comparison to Otis too. Like how he ran after the catch,
speed wise, absolutely. Now, see, and you look at a guy like him. He was certainly faster than Jerry Rice.
Oh, yeah. Bigger, stronger.
Right. And I'll tell you the other reason there's no way that I could really go with Randy Moss here, because the week of the Super Bowl that they played against your guys, he's talking about how he's the GOAT, not Jerry. As a Niner, this is not okay. This is not okay.
Who was?
Randy.
Oh, okay. I thought you were saying.
As a Niner in the Super Bowl. Before he whined and bitched during the Super Bowl, he talked about how great he was and that he was the GOAT. That's blasphemous, bro. Blasphemous. As a Niner?
What's wrong with you, Andy? But yeah, I think that's our top 10, huh? I mean, we got Jerry. We got T.O. Yeah. This needs to go to the other podcast, and we need to figure out where we put Otis. Let me tell you where I put Otis, just in case I ain't on the podcast. I certainly have him in front of Marvin Harrison. I don't even know the list. Tell me who's number 7. Okay. I mean, 9.
Okay, hold on. Let me unshare this screen. I want to.
9 is Marvin. So he's above Torrey Holt. He's above Marvin. Who's number 8? I'll tell you where I got him, just in case I ain't on the show.
Okay, hold on just a minute. You're getting a little quick here.
I'm sorry.
A second. All right. So at number 10, we have Torrey Holt. Of course, I actually have the number to do that. I've already done this. What I would tell you is, again, guys, this is our top 10 that we came up with. Number 10, Torrey Holt. Number 9, Marvin Harrison. Number 8, DeAndre Hopkins. Number 7, Julio Jones. Number 6, Antonio Brown. 5, Larry Fitzgerald. 4, Calvin Johnson. 3, Randy Moss. 2, T.O. And number 1, of course, is
he's got to be in the top 5 right off the bat. He's in the top 5.
Mm-hmm. So, and let me tell you why. So I hadn't really showed you this stat either, really. But
yeah, you talk about it. You never show me. I'm going to send that to you. I guess you finally did. It's true. You did.
Yeah, I did. So, okay. This is a simple deal. And really the way that you have to look at this is, and something I want people to remember as well, because if you just look at raw stats, then you don't get the full picture. And this is on the website. This is something that I wrote on the website at the top. It's my top story. If you are going to look at just stats, you will not get the full picture. And that's not just with Otis Taylor. You're not going to get it with anybody, to be quite honest with you. Yep. Now, the stats are what they are. With Jerry Rice, they're the best at everything. They were the best at touchdowns. They're the best at receptions, and they're the best at yards. And it's unequivocal he's the best. And, in fact, that's why the Hall of Fame calls him the best football player to ever play.
But, Jason, with that same sentence, if that's the case, then we have to put Larry Fitzgerald number 2, and neither one of us are willing to do that.
No, that's not the case, though. That's not what you have to do, because he's number 2 at only in freaking receptions. Or, I mean, yardage.
Receiving yards.
He's not number 2 in touchdowns. He's not number 2 in catches. He's not – I mean, Jerry Rice is number 1 at all that other stuff.
Okay.
And on top of that, he also – held the record for a very, very long time of most yards in a season, most touchdowns in a season. I think he still has that one.
Yeah, back up.
So again, with Larry Fitzgerald, it's not the same thing because his longevity got him where he got him. He was great for a long time. But again, I did put him in front of your guy, but I also believe I understand. And we're talking 6,000 yards difference. It was because he wasn't as electric. Now, I know a lot of people are going to argue with us about this. That's fine. Argue with us in the comments below. We'll listen to what you got to say. We're good with that. In fact, if you give a good enough argument, we might invite you on sometime, but probably not. All right. So, all right. So if you look at these Otis Taylor, what people need to remember is that Otis played 14 games per season every year. Okay. So now they're playing 17 games. They've been playing 16 since 1978. He didn't get to 1978. He retired in 1975. Another thing you should remember is that in 1978 is when they changed the rule on illegal touching. So Otis had to get beat up all the way up and down the field for the entirety of his career. Okay. And I know in those early AFL years, they especially weren't calling anything. They let them do what they want.
And Jerry Rice never got touched like that.
Jerry Rice never got touched like that. Neither did any of these other guys that we just listed. All the guys on that list did not get touched like that. Now, I will tell you that if I can tell you unequivocally that had we actually talked, the research that I've done, I'm going to tell you now that Lance Allworth would probably be number 2 on this list. For the amount of, 14 game seasons, the entirety of his career. He got beat up during games as well. And he had 8 straight 1,000-yard seasons in the 60s. Now, that does tell you how much the Chargers were throwing the ball. But, bro.
You got the guy for the Packers that we discussed that a lot of people said was the greatest of all time for 50 years. He was in 1930s, 1940s. But, yes, I agree with you. Lance Allworth would probably be number 2.
I think he would. And I don't know. I don't know that he – you could probably make the argument about number 1 if you adjust these numbers like what I'm going to show you. So, essentially what we do, folks let me just get to the little
Here we go. You ready for the stats? Here's the stats.
Yes, sir. Here we go. Games played.
135.
Okay, 5 extra games than Otis. So receptions.
731.
700. Wow. Okay. That's a lot of freaking catches in that amount of time. All right. Receiving yards.
11,619.
Yards per reception, which is a constant.
15.9.
15.9?
Yep. That is a very high number for that era.
That is a super high number for that era. It is. That actually, I think, is higher than Jerry Rice's. All right. Yards per game.
86.1.
Okay. Wow. I was already there. Touchdowns.
83.
83. Okay. Touchdowns per reception would be, so if he had 83 at 731. Okay. So you come up with your touchdown per reception by multiplying touchdowns or dividing touchdowns by the receptions. That gives you with 0.11. So he was at 0.11 touchdowns per reception for his career. Okay. Now, if you look over here at Otis Taylor, and these are their actual, this is his actual as well. Otis Taylor had played 130 games. Okay. He had 410 receptions, 321 shy of Calvin Johnson.
Wow.
7,306 yards, 17.8 yards per reception. He averaged 56 per game, 56.2, wasn't it? And his, it would be here divided by here. So he was at 0.15 touchdowns per receptions. Now, I think you know where this is going to go at this point, but let me explain the stat, okay? Now, we've been talking about this a lot, and you get a lot of people that continue to say that Otis's numbers don't stack up. And even guys that are trying to argue for him will say it, that his numbers just don't look that good. Well, you know what? They do.
Bro, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, but what I want to tell you is this: is that I don't care where Otis comes up here, because I already know that he's going to come up high. Okay, so let's say for his career, what you do with this stat is you switch out two things. You account for the 16 games and you account for the yards or for the catches. Because if you look at this, 1971, for instance, okay, the reason I asked you for that season, Otis's best season was 1966. Do you have that up?
I can pull it up.
Okay. Right now, I know I have his career stats here, but we can go against, or we're going to go against their careers anyway. But what I would tell you is, if you look at, generally speaking, Otis, well, they had how many fucking completions? 445 completions. In 1971, the Chiefs attempted 337 passes. Attempted.
He caught 57.
And he caught 57 of them, which was 31.6% of those catches. Okay. So where he was at, which again, more power to you, bro. Okay. But if you look at this number, I mean, we're talking the difference between 445 and they had 337 attempts. They had 100 and something. He was 31.6. I've done this stat. I know what that is. So he was 31.6. That's actually up the top. Yeah. Yeah. So they were 183 for 337. So a little over 60%. But he averaged 17.2 of the attempts went to him, or he had receptions for 17.2% of every attempt, which was way above like Torrey Holt's too. I don't know exactly what he would be at that, but if you're looking at that, just to kind of, because here's the thing, I know that some people are going to sit here and say, well, why would you just want to switch out, and assume? Well, I can assume it because he averaged 30% of his team's receptions. Okay. Torrey Holt in 2000, when the greatest show on turf year, they're defending Super Bowl championship here, and he had 1,600 plus yards. If you look at that season, him, Marshall Faulk, and Isaac Bruce all had over 80 receptions. Okay. Torrey Holt ended up with 1,635 yards. Otis had 1,110 on 57 catches. Okay. They threw the ball. They completed 43 more passes than the Chiefs attempted as well. And again, Otis was 10% higher, but I didn't even account for that. I'm just swapping out these numbers. I'm swapping the receptions one for the other, just because you have to do it, folks. If you don't weight this thing somehow, then you're trying to compare apples to apples when you got a watermelon over here and and like a freaking rock on the other side.
Rock.
I mean, we're talking stupid stuff and this is why it's irritating, guys. It really is. It's irritating to me, Bryce, because when you hear that it's just not that impressive, even against his own people of his time. That's crap too, because it took a guy like Biletnikoff an extra 25 games before he caught up to Otis.
Yeah.
It took him 25 games before he caught Otis in anything. So, and he had 190 more catches in his career to get 1,600 more yards and 16 more touchdowns. Good grief. If Otis gets another 20 catches, he erases them, Yep. Or if he has another 50 catches in a 2-year period, he erases that by a lot because of his average. He's at 17.8. His numbers where they mattered definitely stack up, and they will stack up with everybody in the modern era as well. When you 5. Okay. Now, the numbers that we're going to switch out, remember I said, are going to be receptions. And so Otis's receptions will be Calvin's receptions, which are 731. Okay. Calvin's receptions will be Otis's receptions, which were 410. Yeah,
731.
Yes. Okay. And then, so that's going to, and the constant stays at 15.9. Otis stays at 17.8. Now, again, you can account for this because we're only changing those two things. And in this case, he played 5 more games than Otis. We're talking about a 5-game difference between the two of them. Now, what I'll show you here in just a second after we're done, we're going to show a little video because you got to see it. It's the same thing. Okay. So yards per game, Otis had averaged 56.2. Obviously, Calvin averaged 86.1 for his career. Again, when you're throwing the ball that much more over your career, you know, he had 421 extra receptions, and that's not even, I mean, attempts
in 5 games.
Yeah.
5 games separation.
5 games. He had 321 more receptions in 5 more games.
Yep.
That ought to tell you more than you need to know at all, period. Because look, if you're just switching those things, 15.9, 17.8. So Otis has got in there. That's going to change this. Okay. Instead of him being at 86.1, he's dropping to 50.1. Otis is now 96.4 yards per game if he's catching the same amount because of his yards per average is higher. Okay. So he beats him there. Touchdowns go from 60 to 107 in his career. That would have been all time, you know, one of the all-time great amounts. Calvin Johnson drops to 83. That's still really good. But again, guys, we're not even saying that he's necessarily better. But if you're going to tell me that he's not good enough to be in the Hall of Fame, I got to tell you you're full of shit. Okay?
Yeah, no doubt.
There's no two ways around it. Now, TDs per receptions, those got to stay. Was that correct? He had 83 for 410. No, that should have not. Oh, because, yes, it needed to stay the same. It was 0.11. That's a constant. That's a constant. And this is a constant. Okay. So that would drop him. Actually, he drops down to 65.19. That's about right. You know. Yeah, that's right. Okay. So here we are. His touchdowns would have dropped down actually below Otis Taylor's. And I knew that this was coming, and I promise you I did. And here's what you can account it for. Now, what I would tell you is that this one, because you've got a 30% difference in that 1 year, we would really need to go over what they were in the career to be for sure where it was at. But what I would tell you is he had so many more targets than Otis Taylor that guaranteed he's going to be Otis was always going to get higher than him if he got anywhere close to that. Were Jerry Rice, T.O., Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, Antonio Brown, Jones, Hopkins, Marvin Harrison, Torrey Holt. Guys, he's better than all but one. As far as if you go by his career numbers, he's going to catch all of them. Because of the fact that not one of these guys on this list has more yards per reception. And only Calvin Johnson actually, and I know this number, only Calvin Johnson accounted for more of his team's receptions total than Otis Taylor did.
I'll tell you what, nobody's safe. And they ain't safe whenever your boy Otis Taylor is playing receiver. No corners safe, and no one on that top 10 list is safe.
And this is why I'm going to go ahead and we're going to show you some stats, right? Or we're going to show you some Otis Taylor, and we'll just show you Calvin Johnson too.
I think we end it with the Otis Taylor. Throw him up. Let's watch some highlights, and I think that's a good way to end it. You showed the stats. Let's show him the highlights. And just think about Calvin Johnson while you're watching
Otis Taylor.
I'm just saying, think about Calvin Johnson while you're watching this and see if you can make the comparison.
And you can of him doing his thing. It's damn near every catch. Nah, it ain't. But it's a lot of them. So, okay. The dude's a monster, bro. He was 220. Look, he punched the dude in the mouth. 220, 6'3", ran a sub 4.5 40. He ran 4.42 a number of times. The guy, and look at this, no gloves. He's making grabs, bro. He's making grabs. Look at these guys.
Nobody's safe. Those corners ain't safe.
No, they were
that
not.
Guy, ain't nobody safe. Wait till he starts trucking people.
Yeah, I want to show you that first one. We got to go back to the start here because everybody got to see this. The first thing
The
he does
legend.
is pop a dude in the mouth. You know. There you go.
Bye.
Get off me.
You ain't safe.
You ain't safe. Y'all ain't safe. Bro, look at this, man. He's just, and I mean, we're talking about a guy that, again, he's the same size as Calvin Johnson. Same size. No gloves. He ain't dropping footballs, and he ain't running out of bounds.
We need to have another day to talk about gloves. I think the gloves have actually caused more dropped passes than I think that's how they should always do it. Everyone take your freaking gloves off. It ain't cold outside. Play like Otis Taylor.
Yeah, Otis Taylor, bro. And
look at this run. Look at
this thing, that acceleration, dude. Oof. How often do you see that? You know what I mean?
I like it
Those
whenever
are
you start
only
trucking
the best
people.
players in the world that can go from this to boom. And like his touchdown in the Super Bowl where he does that little jab step, bro. Like he burns the poor Chargers got ate alive by him.
Nobody's safe on that play.
Nobody's safe anytime. Look, face masks don't matter. I'm still catching it, bro.
I like it whenever he just starts trucking people like he's freaking Earl Campbell. Let's play running back rush for two G's.
Look at this move, though. Look at this.
Yeah, like put that guy at running back. What are we doing? Why is he playing receiver?
Bro, yeah. They have the
best
Heisman
receiver,
Trophy
best
winner.
running back, best quarterback,
They have the
best player on
Heisman
the
Trophy
field.
winner, too.
Look at that. Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
Ooh.
That
He
was
just
Ken
hurdled
Houston.
that guy before
That was
it
Ken.
was-
So, guys, you don't have to agree with me on that stat, but I can tell you this. It's having looked at it, and I'm going to tell you this came from Roman Aguilar telling me that he wasn't better than the greatest receivers of all time. And I tell you that he was one of the greatest receivers of all time.
I agree.
And everybody that I've spoken to or gotten a quote from in any way whatsoever that played during that era would tell you that he's one of the greatest receivers of all time or the greatest receiver they ever played against, period. Lamar Parrish, Ken Houston, who is a top 100 safety, or is a top 100 player in NFL history, the generally considered the best free safety to ever play, one of the best safeties, period. And of course, John McClain from the Houston Chronicle, he says he's the best. There's a lot of other guys that do as well. Now, he says Otis Taylor was like Jim Brown or Muhammad Ali. You know what? If a top 100 player tells me that, I got to listen. We're going to have another podcast and talk about this more. What I'm going to tell you is come at me. Go ahead and come at me and tell me that I'm wrong here. Because if you could just watch that, and then see these stats and know that I'm wrong, then I want to hear why. Come on with it. All right.
Come argue with him like I do.
There ain't nobody safe. Go ahead and come into this snake pit. I dare you.
This ain't the arena that you want to be in. I'll tell you that.
Nah, bro. Come on, man.
Sometimes I don't want to be in this arena.
Bro, there ain't nobody safe, bro. There ain't nobody safe. You know this. This is why we named this podcast that. Have a good night, brother. Hey, Otis Taylor, Hall of Fame.
I'm not saying that either yes or nay, he's the best I've played against. He's the best I've played against, and most of it happened in college. I mean, he was impossible. And when you look back at his film, you can take the film of Otis Taylor and match it up against anybody right now in modern day football. Not putting another guy down because there's some great receivers out there. But Otis is in the mix. He might be at the top of the mix.